On today's episode of Project 1918, the team goes nuts getting the wheels off the Nash. Our resident gearhead tears into the engine, revealing what decades have left behind. Then our curator takes us back through the history of the Nash, before we return to Ian to filter out the rest.
Well, hello, it's Rick again from the Canadian Tank Museum, working back on the Nash Quad. Today, as you can see here, we pulled off one of the wheels. Today we're going to pull the other wheel off the other side and inspect some of the driveline components that are in behind it. Brakes, U-joints, and things like that. A couple of guys here from the team, and we're going to get started by pulling the hubcap off and getting the axle nut off. So we'll head over there and watch that now. Set our hubcap. Start.
Whole thing?
Yeah, take it right off. I wouldn't say this is original grease. I'd say somebody re-greased this at some point. It's too fresh to be original from 100+ years ago, but it's nice to see. It's nice to see that there is some half decent grease in there. It means our life is going to be a lot easier. Okay, cotter pin. Okay, so what we're going to do now is remove the axle nut, and then we'll be able to pull the wheel off. So that is what they call a castellated nut. It's got grooves cut into it. The idea is that when the nut goes onto the axle, there's a hole in the axle, and what it does is allow you to put a cotter pin through to retain it so that it can't work its way loose. Okay, so castellated nut. Okay, and then the nut's backed up by a washer.
So what are we looking at on the inside here?
Okay, so this is the outer bearing for the wheel. It's a tapered roller bearing. As you can see, it's in good shape. Lots of reasonably fresh grease in there, which is a good sign.
The engineering on the vehicles, considering it's a 1912, 1913 design, was just far ahead of its time. It was the first truck as a military vehicle.
How's it look, Rick? Well,
I'm going to get a wrench on it.
constructed. So again, we have another castellated nut that holds on the spur gear here. It drives the wheel. Okay, so this is a four-wheel drive vehicle. Kind of its claim to fame, the fact that it was the first four-wheel drive truck ever produced. The front wheels are driven, as you can see here, there's a ring gear, okay, on the hub of the wheel. And then correspondingly over here, there's this straight cutting gear, which is driven by that drive shaft from the differential, and it turns that ring gear. And that's how the drive works for the...
What are we doing here?
Well, we're getting these wheels off and preparing them to go to two places for restoration. The first place is going to media blast the metal parts and then prime it for us. And then it's going to be going down to the US to a place that's going to put authentic rubber wheels on it, new shoes.
My hands are all covered in grease.
So the biggest thing was trying to get the wheels off and figure out how far down we're going to strip them. This is as far as we're going to go. We have to now package it up for shipping and cover it in a manner that when they're blasting this, they don't actually damage. So there's a gear mechanism in here, and the brake shoes actually act. This is actually the brake drum, the wheel and the brake drum. So we need to protect these surfaces for when they're blasting it.
That's good.
And it's going to come back and it's going to go in line to go back together.
Next, we're going to take the brake shoes off to expose the workings in behind the wheel hub, or the wheel plate, sorry. And to do that, I've got to take out the spring, which I'm going to do now.
So what, you're just opening it up here, like why? What is that?
This is the brake, which expands the brake shoes and grabs up against the rim.
Well, definitely the last part. So if you notice, the brake shoes are full of grease, which is not a good thing. That means that that's going to have to be addressed, because those brake shoes need to be dry to be able to function properly. Obviously, brakes with grease in them, not going to work. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is remove these fasteners so we can check the U-joint that's in behind here. These fasteners are all wired. The reason for that is that the piece of wire through a hole, that there's a hole in the fastener and a piece of wire goes through it. And what that is to do is like a cotter pin. It stops the fastener from backing out, coming loose and backing out. So we have to remove that now. That's next.
So the axle here is a lot higher. Normally you would have an axle in the center of the wheel. Your average car, average vehicle is centered. But the axle being this much higher with the gear on top, the driving gears here, allows the planetary gear, it turns the planetary gear inside the hub. This allows the axle to be so much higher and gives you a lot more ground clearance in a vehicle. I haven't checked it, but somebody was telling me that the Humvee uses the same concept. What's going on is 3 wheels came off great. 1 wheel, the bearing is stuck, but we've also discovered that the 4th bearing is different than the other 3.
This one has a different bearing?
From the look of it.
Okay.
And it feels like somebody jammed this thing on at some point and it just didn't want to come off. So they had pressure and calculated violence.
Just be able to. Brakes like brand new. Pete, do you have those bearings at the shop, Chris?
So I think that's just been hardened grease.
You can't just whittle one up real quick.
What did that bearing look like?
Where's the bearing, Rick?
That bearing is good.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's off.
How would it swell?
What a mess.
It looks like it was scored up by the original bearing on here. See, this is all scored right in through here.
Yep.
I'm not sure about this right here. It feels pretty rough coming in there. So when the second, they probably beat it, as Chris was saying, to get the first bearing off, and then they put the second bearing on, and it's probably beaten again to get the second bearing on.
Probably put a socket over to counter that bearing on.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think.
Not on to see later.
Okay, so we finally got the wheel off, and the outer bearing we discovered is in good shape. The problem is that where it fits onto the spindle, the shaft is worn and marred up. So we're going to have to clean that up, because as you can see, the bearing doesn't just want to slide right up on there. It should just slide right on there, and it's jamming up. So we'll get in here and clean that up till we can get that bearing just to slide right on, and we should be in good shape.
For the grease one, why are we doing this?
To clean the grease out before we send them out for cleaning.
So if it's going across the border, there may be issues if it's leaking fluids.
I'm going to set this to the side for a minute. I'm going to show you something on here. So, if you look around here, in this area right here, there's no casting marks or anything. But if you come over here to this rim, on this side, right over here, you have to look down right here. If you look down, you see the patent number right here. Patent May 14th, 1918. It's the only rim that has that. That's pretty cool. Now, something I was going to show you about these rims too. So these are the 2 rims that came off the back of the truck. This one right here, since I was the one that had my hands all mucked up the most, this, I recognize this grease. So you look at the thickness of this, right there, it's like 1/2 inch. This one over here is 1/2 inch. And then if you look over here, this all part of reassembly, it's not 1/2 inch, it's got a sharp edge to it. So this is probably the front wheels right here. And this is another front wheel. So we've got to make sure we reassemble this in the correct order. So these two will have to go on the front and those two go on the back. So I'm also going to put some identifier right here. I'm going to engrave left rear, left front, right front, somewhere in here. Here we go, we're going to mark up these rims to make sure they go back on the truck when we reassemble it in the proper corner where they came from. We're really concerned about making sure the gears on the inside here, the drive gears, are going to be lined up, and right now the truck's working really good the way it was, so we're going to make sure the same gears go back on the same corner with this vehicle here. That's right rear. We're going to move down here. We're going to do left rear. Left rear.
We're getting there.
Farther.
We're up to the end of the
Keyway?
keyway.
My name is Ken Livingstone. I'm a licensed automotive, heavy truck, motorcycle technician. I can do some airplane work. I've been a gearhead all my life, raced pretty much anything there is that has 2 to 4 wheels. And working on stuff is my passion. As you can see, I've got an old car. I've taken on this big project for the museum. I've got airplane motors kicking around, and it's just what I do. For a living, it's servicing motorcycles. Ducati is my specialty, but I've got a very good, strong client base, and people seem to come here. And my environment is awesome because I've got every little toy here. Makes the girlfriend happy because there's less at home. And I just love what I do for a living. It's great. I get to go around in some tanks. I get to hang out with the guys. I go flying in old planes. I ride motorcycles a lot and build models in the winter. Just total gearhead and happy about it.
How did you get involved with the Canadian Tank Museum?
I'd gone there about 20 years ago when it was much smaller and it was cool, but then somebody said you got to go back, so I went back about 7 or 8 years ago. I was blown away how big it's gotten. Like, holy smokes, that's a lot of hardware and it's a lot more space. Got to meet some of the guys. We had things in common because a lot of the guys are retired or still current mechanics, and some of the guys were in the forces. So it was just a natural thing. And I started volunteering every Wednesday in the winter when my bike shop is slow. It was an easy thing to do. So I donated every Wednesday to the museum. And I go in and work on a project, and it's great. Loved it. And they loved to have me there because I do have some skills. And then this year, when I saw the M1917 Tank roll in, it was like I kind of fell in love with it because I do like World War I stuff, planes and you name it. So I kind of begged and pleaded to be on the team, and I'm on the team. And here I am taking apart this unbelievably rare engine. This is for the Nash Quad, but it's the same engine that is in the M1917. So strange, but simple at the same time. It's just big and heavy, but I like that kind of thing. I like old stuff.
Wicked. This one's no surprises yet, so let's hope the others don't as well, right?
Yeah. This one looks like it's going to come apart really nice, touch wood. The other one has been sitting a lot longer, so we're not sure how it's going to come apart. And we know it's missing a couple pieces, but hopefully we can get around all that, and hopefully it's in good serviceable condition too. Because if we have to find a major part, if we can't source it or make it, we're in trouble. So let's hope that it's going to come apart and be as good a condition as the Nash engine.
And you never worked on anything like this before, no?
Flatheads when I was in trade school. And my car is 1958, but nothing this old and big. No.
Did you have to do a lot of research?
I did as much as I could. There's not much out there though. Nigel has done a great job at sourcing us some manuals and things. So that's good. I have a manual on site and a little bit of this and that and some just online research. But again, there's not much out there. The company that made it has been out of business for 70, 80 years. So a lot of it is just going to be winging it. But it's a motor. I've been taking apart motors since I was 12. So I'm not too worried.
Do you think it's convenient that they both have a similar engine?
It's great. It's great. Because this one, I'm pretty much guaranteed it's been apart 30, 40 years ago. I'll be used to this one, and I'll know, and I'll have made up all the special tools because you can't buy the tools. So the second one, other than it's been together for a lot longer and might fight me coming apart, it'll be a lot more, common to me because I know how this one comes apart. So I'm looking forward to doing both. I'd like to speed up the timeline and get things done before the guys think they're going to be done. So as long as we don't run into some weird problem, I think we can do it. I think we can get this motor together. I'd like to get it together for the spring. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
This one or both?
At least this one. Because of the other one, it's been together so long, I don't know what I'm going to run into. We know it turns over, which is bonus number one, but you never know. It looks a lot crustier. This motor probably hasn't been opened up in about 30, 40 years. I don't want to see any disasters. So far, so good. Yeah. Pistons are almost ready to come out. That is so cool. I can't believe it just came off like that. That's unbelievable. That is very promising. Now, we'll give it a good inspection when I get it all apart. But initially, it looks pretty darn good. Yeah. Very strange, but pretty darn good. Wow. Yeah, this has definitely been apart many years ago, but it's been apart. There's no way it would have come off just like that easy, if somebody hadn't done this already. Big, heavy, ugly parts. Not state of the art. Although I guess for 1917 they were. Yeah. That is a great step. Great stuff. Here's all the tappets. They're all free. So that rides on the camshaft, which is under there, and that opens up your valve, flathead. The valves come up, gas goes in, combust, comes out this side. So I'll have to pull the valves out of the head, service the head. It's a little nasty, but I'm not worried about anything I've seen so far, so that's good. I'll probably assess the head before I go any farther on the bottom end. It's got a really long stroke. This motor's incredibly long stroke.
Is the stroke how long the revolution is for it?
Yeah, and it's the longer the stroke, the more torque the motor makes. Short modern engines have a really short stroke and big bore pistons, so they reciprocating mass is light, so that's why they rev up so much higher than these old motors. This thing would probably blow up at like 2,500 RPM. Yeah, it's probably happiest between about 900 and 2,000.
That's why it goes like 15 miles an hour, whatever. Right?
Yeah, yeah. But all this weight going around at that speed,
Yeah.
you can't have a lot of RPM. So
Just trying to evaluate how it flows at the minute.
so far it feels great, but they're so big that I'll have to get them out to make sure. But there's the camshaft here. That's the camshaft. I'm sure driven by gears inside this case. So the cam lobes, which I'll be checking to make sure that they're all good, pushes up those tappets on the cylinder head, and that's what opens the valve. So in and out, exhaust going in and out. Crazy long stroke. I can even see the top of this piston. It's almost clean. You know, it's had years of use in that, but there's very little soot on top of that piston. There is some on the others, but that one's very little, and less soot tells me that it didn't actually run very long. So that's good.
You mean it wasn't used much?
After somebody freshened it up, I think decades ago, it was probably saw very little use after that. So that's all a plus for us. Hopefully all the service parts, rings, rod bearings, crank bearings, hopefully all that major stuff is still in good shape. And if it is, we're home free.
I hope.
Yeah, clean it up, adjust a couple of things, toss it back together. So that's what we're hoping for. Yeah, so that's actually the top of the cylinder. And you can tell it's been apart before because these are supposed to be studs. So you can see by the shape that they are actually a nut, but you can see that they're long gone and you'll never get any of these out. They're just never gonna move. So somebody has, instead of a stud, they've drilled and tapped them. So now it takes 2 bolts and the 2 stock studs to hold on. This is the upper water jacket that feeds the coolant through the motor. Hence the rust. That's why it's so rusty.
So that rust would have been there whether it had been opened
Yeah,
up or not.
yeah. You know, rust never sleeps, and nothing you can do about it. It's fine. So all this will get cleaned up. I'll pull all the valves out. The valves come up through these access holes, which actually form part of the combustion chamber, which is very strange. But because this whole thing is cast in one big assembly, that's the only way you can do it. You have to pull the valves out through these, put them back in, and then you screw these inserts in, and there's your cylinder complete again. Very, very strange. I've never seen that before in my life.
No?
Never.
Before this?
Before this, never. Yeah. Usually, it's a separate head. The head just bolts on at about here, and you just pull the head off, and you can see your pistons, you can see your valves. I don't know why they did this. It's actually pretty impressive casting to be able to do that for 1917, but it's very strange. But so far, everything's looking good.
Do you think soon after that's when they started to make the top be able to come off?
Well, yeah, people were doing that before that. Like Henry Ford was doing normal, as we call it, flatheads a lot earlier than this. I don't know why they did this. And it's probably completely lost the time. Like some engineer thought, it actually does make it stronger because it's all one piece. And they figured out the technology to do it by having these removable caps. But other than that, I have no idea why they did this.
But you get to deal with it.
Get to deal with it. Made up a handy dandy tool. It goes across the caps and you spun it out. And sure enough, with a little extra leverage on it, they spun out every single one of them. Whether the tank motor is going to do that or not, we don't know. It's cast iron, so what I'll have to do on the tank motor is probably heat up the outside area with a torch gently, expand it, and different temperatures, and hopefully they'll spin out too. If they don't, then it's not going to be good. But let's hope.
Today on Project 1918, we're exploring the history of the maker behind the quad, the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company. Thomas Buckland Jeffrey was born in Stoke Damerel, near Devon, in the United Kingdom on the 5th of February 1845. In his youth, he worked as a mathematical instrument maker. He emigrated to the United States at age 18, settling near Chicago, and some sources suggest he did further work in the optical instrument industry. In 1876, to mark the 100th anniversary of the United States independence, there's a special centennial exhibition held in Philadelphia where a penny farthing bicycle is displayed to the visiting public. 2 years later, Albert Pope introduces the bicycle market to North America for the first time, manufacturing his Columbia brand bicycles at the Weed Sewing Machine Company in Hartford, Connecticut. A year later, Jeffrey partners with Philip Gormley to make the Gormley and Jeffrey Manufacturing Company in Chicago, where they start manufacturing their own Rambler series of bicycles to sell to the public. Early bicycle tires were sometimes sealed with glue to join the tire to the rim, but these had a high rate of failure. So Jeffrey decided to create a screw fastening design that would clinch the tire to the rim to avoid it from separating. This type of tire design is actually still used on bicycles today. In 1897, now with his son Charles on board, Jeffrey branches out into designing some early automobiles, with a single-cylinder engine tiller steering automobile being one of their earliest designs. 3 years later, in 1900, Gormley passes away, and with Charles's car designs being shown on expositions in Chicago and New York City, they decide to switch things up and move into the automotive business. Jeffrey sells his bicycle business and purchases a factory to manufacture cars in Kenosha, Wisconsin, thus marking the birth of the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company. Around that same time, the U.S. Army is engaged in the Spanish-American War in 1898 and the subsequent Philippine-American War, in which it's relying on 4 mule teams to pull 1.5-ton supply wagons to maintain the military supply chain. Mules are strong and reliable, but they need food, watering, and constant care, so it would be ideal if they could be replaced with a truck that didn't need as regular care, but could also navigate all that same difficult terrain that the mules could. Interestingly enough, four-wheel drive auto technology was coming on the scene in the early 20th century. In 1909, the Badger Four-Wheel Drive Auto Company, now known just as the Four-Wheel Drive Auto Company, was founded in Clintonville, Wisconsin, and they were making four-wheel drive trucks for heavy industrial and emergency service needs, like fire trucks. In 1912 and 1913, the U.S. Army officially puts out that call for a four-wheel drive truck. Charles actually buys one from the Four-Wheel Drive Auto Company, tests it out, and actually finds it to be pretty unsatisfactory for what the U.S. Army needs, so he decides that he's going to make his own. Not only does he make a truck that has four-wheel drive, but he makes one with four-wheel steering and four-wheel braking. He keeps the weight down to 5.95 tons and installs a BUDA HU engine producing 28.9 horsepower, ultimately producing a power-to-weight ratio of 4.85 horsepower per short ton. Charles pitches his truck design to the US Army, and although they find it to be kind of slow, it's virtually unstoppable in every sense over uneven ground. Thus, the US Army chooses to adopt it as the Model 4017. Canada and fellow Entente powers that are now embroiled in the First World War also know of the truck, and they choose to adopt it for military service on the Western Front. And it's that subject that we'll explore in our next episode.
Okay, so I'm Ian. Welcome back. In order to get access to the engine and pull it out, we've been pulling pieces out and pulling pieces off. This is a vacuum tank. So I'm just going to pull this one out. And after that, I think we're going to go with this rod assembly. This is used for locking the hood down, basically on like your car. Your hood would be locked in so it doesn't pop up. In this case, it'd be more like the back hood is locked in to keep people from messing around, to keep it from rattling around when you're driving cross country in the tanks. So, fortunately, some of this is already broken. This is a breather line, an air line. We're just going to take the working parts out. The float, you can see there's some springs and things that need to be repaired, but still pretty complete. What have we got here? Just happy to finally be getting the vacuum tank off. There we go. Thank you. And a century worth of stuff in the bottom. Maybe you can see all that. Two drain cocks in the bottom here. But still in pretty good condition. We'll clean that up. And that'll go in beautifully back into the vehicle.
What we're going to look at now is the wheels themselves. There are machined surfaces on the inside and the outside that have to be protected during the sandblasting process. So what we're going to have to make are some plywood covers. And you can see from our rough sketch here on the whiteboard, we've designed what we need to build. So there'll have to be a large plywood ring that goes on the back of the wheel and a smaller plywood ring that goes on the hub where you saw us take the axle nut off, and then those will be fastened together, and that'll seal those machine surfaces off from the sandblasting process.
So we want to make sure that there's no damage to the gear or the bearing faces while it's out. So we've got these covered for shipment. Doesn't have to be super tight, just has to be secure enough. All right, so now we go back down. Okay, so now it's in place. And we'll stack another wheel on top of here. Right down. No, keep on.
Thank you very much for joining us again today for another episode of Project 1918. The Canadian Tank Museum is expanding and it needs your support to help make its new facility a reality. Please go to tankmuseum.ca/donate to contribute to our expansion fund. You also can follow us on social media at Canadian Tank Museum and support us on Patreon to get further access to exclusive content just like this. Thank you very much.